Well, we've looked thoroughly at the New Testament first, the Greek Bible, and all the support it has for whether or not it's reliable, or we just investigate, take the time to look at this. Thousands of documents. And we've done the same for the Old Testament, and now we're looking at the Old Testament relative to archaeology. That's even more important than the New Testament, although equally important in the sense of supporting what we have in writing, and whether or not certain facts and events and names of places in the New Testament actually existed. A lot of people try to go as far as all these towns and places we can't find on the map today. Well, towns and events, the perspective changes all the time. Let's go back and find out from archaeology whether or not these things are true. And the same for ancient times, even more because it's so much older and so much more time has gone by. Support from archaeology. Well, what is archaeology? Introduction and definition of archaeology. A substantial proof for the accuracy of the Old Testament text has come from archaeology. Numerous discoveries have confirmed the historical accuracy of the biblical documents, even down to the occasional use of obsolete names of foreign kings. These archaeological confirmations of the accuracy of Scripture have been recorded in numerous books. Archaeologist Nelson Gluck asserts it may be stated categorically that no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a biblical reference. Isn't that interesting? We look for things to confirm our beliefs by what appear as evidence and what doesn't appear. Sometimes there are certain things that people say are important, and even more importantly, what they don't say. Scores of archaeological findings have been made which confirm in clear outline or exact detail historical statements in the Bible. So, the discipline of archaeology has only recently gained relative importance among the physical sciences. However, it has been made, significant contributions have been made in many areas, including biblical criticism and arguments for the reliability of the biblical text. The word archaeology is composed of two Greek words, archaeos or archaeos, meaning old or ancient, and logos, signifying word, treatise, or study. So a literal definition is the study of antiquity. Webster defines it, the scientific study of material remains as fossils, relics, artifacts, monuments of past human life and activities. Merriam-Webster wrote on this. So the task of the archaeologist is to take what remains from a society and reconstruct what the artifacts tell us. You have to be careful, though, don't read too much into it. Archaeology is very different from most of modern science in that it attempts to prove a thesis. The basic premise of an experiment in modern science is that if it is repeatable, then it must be true. However, archaeology, on the other hand, cannot possibly repeat its results. It can only give conjectures, not firm conclusions, concerning its finds, unless there is another outside confirmation by means of a text or other report. And this is where biblical archaeology takes on a unique twist. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the Bible took a beating from higher criticism. Critics have sought to destroy the foundations of the historicity of the Bible by showing that the Bible has errors and must be adjusted to fit the facts of archaeology. But now the tables are turning. Notice the word facts is in quotations. Reformed Jewish scholar Nelson Gluck has observed, it is worth emphasizing that in all this work no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a single properly understood biblical statement. Note that this statement was made by a Reformed Jewish scholar. He is not a Christian, and yet he sees that archaeology confirms the Bible. For the purposes of this book, archaeological confirmation is divided into artifact evidence and documentary evidence. Artifact evidence is defined as artifacts of a previous society testifying directly of a biblical event. On the other hand, documentary evidence will be defined as extra-biblical texts, written documents that confirm Old Testament history directly or indirectly. Both kinds of evidence are archaeological in nature. Joseph Free, in Archaeology and Bible History, addresses the question of archaeology and its relationship to the Bible. we pointed out that numerous passages of the Bible which long puzzled the commentators have readily yielded up their meaning when new light from archaeological discoveries has been focused on them. In other words, archaeology illuminates the text of the Scriptures and so makes valuable contributions to the fields of biblical interpretation and exegesis. In addition to illuminating the Bible, archaeology has confirmed countless passages which have been rejected by critics as unhistorical or contradictory to known facts. We have Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's take a look at this. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was thought to be spurious until evidence revealed that all 5 of the cities mentioned in the Bible were in fact centers of commerce in the area and were geographically situated as the Scriptures describe. The biblical description of their demise seems to be no less accurate as well. Evidence points to earthquake activity, and that the various layers of the earth were disrupted and hurled high into the air. Bitumen is plentiful there, and an accurate description would be that brimstone, bituminous pitch, was hurled down on these cities that had rejected God. There is evidence that the layers of sedimentary rock had been molded together by intense heat. Evidence of such burning had been found on the top of Jebel Ustum, Mount Sodom. This is permanent evidence of the great conflagration that took place in the long distant past, possibly when an oil basin beneath the Dead Sea ignited and erupted. Such an explanation in not one way subtracts from the miraculous quality of the event, for God controls natural forces. Such explanation in no way subtracts from the miraculous quality of the event, for God controls natural forces. Forgive my typo. The timing of the event in the context of warnings and visitation by angels reveals its overall miraculous nature. Now we have Jericho. During the excavations of Jericho, Garstang found something so startling that he and 2 other members of the team prepared and signed a statement describing what was found. In reference to these findings, Garstang says, "As to the main fact, then there remains no doubt the walls fell outwards, not inwards, so completely that the attackers would be able to clamber up and over the ruins into the city." Why so unusual? Because the walls of cities do not fall outwards, they fall inwards. And yet in Joshua 6:20 we read, "The wall fell down flat. Then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and he took the city." The walls were made to fall outward. Bryant Wood, writing for the Biblical Archaeology Review, includes a list of collaboration between archaeological evidence and biblical narrative as follows. The wall was strongly fortified. The attack occurred just after the harvest time in the spring. The inhabitants had no opportunity to flee with their food sheds. The siege was short. The walls were leveled, possibly by an earthquake. The city was not plundered. The city was burned. The walls of Jericho fell outwards. Well, you can look at this website. Let's see if it's still there. Yeah, there it is. You can take a look at it. I didn't do that. There's a little map from there, a copy. When excavating in and around Jericho between 1930 and 1936, Professor John Garstang wrote, "As to the main fact, then, there remains no doubt the walls of the city fell outward so completely that the attackers would be able to clamber up and over the ruins into the city." In addition to writing this independent description of this one particular find, he also signed it and had 2 of his co-workers witness and sign it themselves. Why did he feel it necessary to emphasize the authenticity of this statement to such a degree? Well, because the evidence from every other archaeological site around the ancient cities of the Middle East always showed the walls of the cities always fell inward. Every single one except, of course, Jericho's. They all fell inward rather than out for a very simple reason. When attackers besiege a city, they're typically trying to get in, not out. And yet Jericho's walls fell clearly outward. The reason for this can be found in the biblical account of the fall of Jericho when God caused the walls to fall down flat, allowing Joshua's army to seize the city. That's March 27, 1999 was the article. The walls did come tumbling down. Sir Gary Byers writes, in the spring of 1997, 2 Italian archaeologists conducted a limited excavation on the ancient tell of Jericho. Lorenzo Nigro and Niccolo Marchetti, working under the auspices of the new Palestinian Development of Archaeology, excavated for 1 month on the fringes of Kathleen Canyon's west and south trenches. Their dig was the first foreign expedition in the Palestinian-controlled areas of the West Bank since self-rule began in 1994. Here's a picture. ABR's Bryant Wood standing beside a section of the collapsed wall of Jericho. After their excavation, Nigro and Marchetti announced they found no evidence for a destruction from the time of Joshua. While it is too soon for the academic community to see details of their discoveries, their announcement suggests their excavation was conducted to disprove the biblical account of Joshua's capture of the city. It is further possible that the Palestinian Authority supported this dig for the express purpose of denouncing any Jewish connection to the city, to the site. As to their evidence, Dr. Bryant Wood, a director of the Associates for Biblical Research and one of the leading experts on the archaeology of Jericho, recently responded, "It matters little what the Italian archaeologists did not find in the month-long dig. The evidence is already in. 3 major expeditions to the site over the 90 years uncovered abundant evidence to support the biblical account." He said, as Wood went on to point out, John Garstang and Kathleen Kenyon both dug at Jericho for 6 seasons, and a German excavation directed by Ernest Sellen and Karl Watzinger dug for 3. All found abundant evidence of the city's destruction by fire in a layer related to the biblical date of 1400 BC. In September 1997, Dr. Wood visited Jericho and examined the results of the Italian excavation firsthand. Incredibly, he found the Italians had uncovered the stone outer revetment wall at the base of the tell, with part of the mud brick wall built on top of it still intact. In the bulk of the Italian excavation at the outer base of the revetment wall, Wood noticed the remains of the collapsed mud brick city walls which had tumbled. Not only did the Italians find the same evidence uncovered in the earlier excavations, it fits the biblical story perfectly. The Italian excavation actually uncovered most of the critical evidence relating to the biblical story, said Wood. But even more exciting is the fact that all the evidence from the earlier digs had disappeared over time. We only have records, drawings, and photos. But the Italians uncovered a completely new section of the wall which we did not know still existed. I had my photograph taken standing next to the wall where the mud brick collapsed and had just been excavated. There's the picture as we looked at, right here. Amazing. Unfortunately, the Italian archaeologists, the Palestinian authorities, the Associated Press, and most of the world didn't realize any of this. It is a sad commentary on the state of archaeology in the Holy Land, when the purpose of an excavation at a biblical site is to disprove the Bible and is to disassociate the site with any historical Jewish connections, and it did just the opposite. But that's why the Associates for Biblical Research is in business. Please pray for our efforts. Pray for the removal of all obstacles blocking the publication of Dr. Wood's technical study, The Pottery of Jericho. And please pray for the continued fieldwork ABR sponsors in Israel. And please pray for our daily efforts in the presenting of this truth to the world. We have David and Solomon. Saul became the first king of Israel, and his fortress at Gibeah has been excavated. One of the most noteworthy finds was that slingshots were one of the primary weapons of the day. This relates not only to David's victory over Goliath, but to the reference of Judges 20:16 that there were 700 expert slingers who could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. Upon Saul's death, Samuel tells us that his armor was put in the temple of Ashtoreth, the Canaanite fertility goddess at Beth Shean, while Chronicles records that his head was put in the temple of Dagon, the Philistine corn god. This was thought to be an error because it seemed unlikely that enemy peoples would have temples in the same place at the same time. However, excavations have revealed that there are 2 temples at this site that are separated by a hallway, one for Dagon and the other for Ashtaroth. It appears that the Philistines had adopted the Canaanite goddess. One of the key accomplishments of David's reign was the capture of Jerusalem. And problematic in the scripture account was that the Israelites entered the city by way of a tunnel. More on this next time.